All right, I guess we should get started here. It's a Wednesday night. It's 8:30. It's past 8:30, so I'm a little bit behind. So I apologize for the brief delay. Somebody had in the comments about who to root for this weekend, who Pitt fans should root for. Somebody already put a comment. We'll get to that. So I was just kind of glancing over the ACC games this weekend and lost track of time and realized it's already 8:32. So we should probably get going here on this week's live Panther-Lair Show. Appreciate everybody who's already tuned in. Everybody who's filtering in as we get started here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You know what we always ask you to do? Like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you don't miss any of our Pitt video content. Every day of the week, we have a morning Pitt video. Every Wednesday night, we have this live stream here from 8:30 to 9:30 with Jim Hammett and me. And then we have our post-game shows. No post-game show this week because there's no game, but we're going to have one next week, though, after the Thursday night game. I always remember we did. I forget if there was a Thursday. I'm sure there was a Thursday night game last year, but I forget what it was. We'll have to ask Jim if he remembers what it was. But I remember after the Backyard Brawl, the 2022 Thursday night game, doing a post-game show and sitting here live streaming on YouTube until like 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And so that's what we're going to do next Thursday after the Syracuse game at Acrisure Stadium, Pitt's next game. But obviously no post-game show here this weekend. But it's all right here. All the post-game shows, all the live streams, all the morning Pitt videos. We do it right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. If you want to make sure you don't miss any of our Pitt video content, subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And of course, like I say, like this video. It's an off week, but we're still going strong here on the live stream. We'll have this one tonight. We'll have another one next Wednesday. And because we don't really take a week off as far as it goes with the live shows, and Jim's here, I'm here, and it seems like you guys are starting to filter in as well. Remember, if you want to be part of the conversation here tonight about Pitt sports, whether it's about Pitt's 6-0 start, the upcoming beginning to the basketball season, the Pitt men's basketball team will play its exhibition game next Tuesday night. So a week from yesterday will be the exhibition game against Point Park. So it's really getting there, really on the way. And what's the opener against Radford is on like November 4th or something like that. So, I mean, we're coming up quick on these basketball games. So if you want to talk a little Pitt hoops, we can do that. You want to talk whatever you want to talk, anything Pitt sports related, jump in the comment section over there. Post your comments and questions. We'll try to read as many as we can. And of course, if you want to make sure that we read your comment or answer your question, you can be a super chatter. Click the little $ down at the bottom of the screen there and kick a couple bucks to the podcast. We appreciate your support, and we will definitely read your comment or answer your question here on the live show at some point over the next hour, 55 minutes, whatever it might be. All right, let's bring Jim in and see if he can remind me what the Thursday night game was last year. Jim, what was the Thursday night game last year?
Boston College.
Boston College was a Thursday night game. Wow.
So right. Pitt has won its last 5 Thursday night games over the past 5 years.
Get out of here.
Do you remember all of them?
Well, obviously, I mean, Boston College and West Virginia, 2021, Carolina, right? Because yes. Carolina has to play on a Thursday night when they come to Pittsburgh. So that's 3.
The 2020 is tough. I don't know if you'll get this.
Wasn't it the Georgia Tech game was on a weird day? Yeah. Was that a Thursday? Yeah. I was going to say that was on like a Wednesday or something like that. And then 2019, you said they won. Oh, Carolina again. Because Carolina, when they play at Pitt, they have to be on a Thursday night. Did they not have a Thursday night game in 2018?
They did not. Then in 2017, they lost to Carolina. So they have a 5-game Thursday night. I just did this in like the past 30 seconds whenever you started talking about it. I went down a rabbit hole.
That's I don't like the Carolina thing is so ridiculous. Like I can't. Oh wait, they didn't. But last year was on a Saturday. The Carolina game last year was that on a Saturday?
Was it?
I mean, like, well, you just told me they've won 5 in a row.
Well, I don't think they had 2 last year. They wouldn't have had 2 Thursday.
No, yeah, that was on a Saturday. I'm looking like, yeah, they played Wofford on the 2nd, then the 9th, then the 16th, then Carolina was on the 23rd. So that would all, unless all those games were on Thursdays, I'm going to assume that those were all Saturdays. So, all right. So finally, at least they put a Carolina game in Pittsburgh on a Saturday. But other than that, like 17, 19, 21, I wonder if the 2015 game was on a Thursday. Yeah, it looks like it was because they played at Syracuse on the 24th and they played Carolina at home on the 29th. And then, I mean, I'm assuming 2013. No, that would have been a Saturday. So out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times that Carolina's come to Pitt, 4 out of the 6 have been on Thursday nights. I don't get it. I don't know what they like. Do they think that they're like drawing extra people to Pitt? Like, what could possibly be the rationale for it? It's not just a weird coincidence, right? I mean, there's some reasoning behind it, wouldn't you think?
There has to be, but you remember the one year like the Steelers Browns played at the exact same time, like
Yeah.
like it was just weird. Like I don't know what the attraction is. It's not like, especially in that instance, you're not going to get more people to watch the game. So I don't know. I've never really gotten why Pitt gets a lot of Thursday games.
Well, and specifically against North Carolina. Like I don't understand that. You know what? Thursday games never draw here though. I can't remember ever seeing a good crowd for a Thursday night at Heinz Field / Acrisure Stadium. I mean, you know, we could go back and look through the years of attendance numbers. The Cal game last Saturday, they announced it 49,773. I think the general consensus is that it was a pretty lame crowd, numbers wise. They obviously got loud at the end on Cal's last possession. I mean, you could hear it, but numbers wise, it looked like less than 49. Is sort of the impression that I've gotten. Do you agree with that? And B, A, do you agree with that? B, do you think Finkel Studios points out the backyard brawl on a Thursday obviously drew, but outside of that, I think Thursday nights historically have been pretty low attendance. Do you think they outdraw the Cal game with this Syracuse game? So do they get over 50,000? Do they get close enough to 50,000 that they can announce over 50,000?
See, I think one of the biggest factors in getting a bigger crowd is I think a lot of students were off Monday, so a lot of them took the liberty to go away for the weekend. So the student section wasn't the most packed it's been all year. Actually, it was probably their worst turnout because like now they made the upper bleachers the student section, and there was nobody up there for that game.
Yeah.
So I would think if just on student attendance alone, and if everything else is equal, they could possibly do better than they did against the Cal game.
I mean, that kind of explains it because I kept going back and forth about like what's missing in terms of making last Saturday's game appealing to Pitt fans. Like beautiful weather, undefeated team, high potency, exciting offense, winning exciting games, a unique opponent, a compelling opponent, I think. I mean, I think all things considered, when you looked at the matchup with Cal and the fact that it was Cal, I mean, this wasn't Oklahoma State coming here in 2017. I think this was a genuinely interesting, compelling game, arguably more so than Tennessee in 2022. I would say in terms of a team coming here, because Tennessee, I mean, that was interesting. That was a big name opponent and their SEC and all that. But this was a game against a conference opponent. And one that looked like it might be pretty decent. I feel like it was more compelling, and a team that nobody's ever seen play. There's probably like, would you say over under 100 fans who watched Pitt play against Cal the last time they played against Cal
at the game.
Who were at the game on Saturday? Yeah,
I would say probably low. What was it? Yeah. 63 was the last time Cal played in Pittsburgh.
Right. So you're talking about people who are, I mean, in their 70s at the youngest. If they were like little kids, if they were 10 years old, they're in their 70s already. So anyway, I couldn't put my finger on. I was like, what kept people away? Like, why wouldn't you go to this game? Every element you would want, short of it being against Penn State, Notre Dame, or West Virginia. I don't know what was missing, and yet crowd didn't show up. And so I don't know if Thursday is going to be all that great. I forget how we got sidetracked on this, but or not sidetracked, it's just where we started off. But it's a Thursday night game, and we will be live after that one. Here, Josh Newark says, for us out-of-towners, you have to take 2 days off for a Thursday game. It is tough. You know what I mean? It is tough if you don't have – because, I mean, there are fan bases, right, that they plan their whole fall around the football games. You know what I mean? That's what they do in the fall. I don't think Pitt really has that kind of fan base, either locally or stretching out throughout the state and throughout the region. I don't think they have that kind of fan base. And so it probably keeps a lot of people away when you go on a Thursday night. But yeah, kids have school the next day. There's a lot. So it's probably not going to be great, but this is a huge game though. Coming up here next Thursday, and we'll have a live stream next Wednesday, Jim. We'll talk about it a little bit then as well. Do you have an early feel on this game? A lot's going to happen between now and then. Syracuse is going to play. Where are they this week? Oh, they're off too, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. What's your early thought on Syracuse and Pitt in this matchup?
I don't know. I have a sense that it's not going to be like the 2016 game, but I could see it just being like a stupid, like a lot of scoring, both quarterbacks trading big plays. Somebody was asking me, like, what do you think the line's going to be? And like, I think Pitt would be favored by like 3 or 4, but I don't know. I mean, I guess that line won't come out until Sunday. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be high scoring. I think both offenses are going to be able to make plays against the other team. And these are two teams kind of riding the wave of new systems. I mean, you have Pitt's new offensive coordinator, you have a brand new coaching staff at Syracuse. So like, yeah, there's a lot of, upbeat feelings around both programs. Even though Syracuse isn't undefeated, it's still a really good start for them. So yeah, I just get the sense that it might be kind of a dumb back and forth game played in the high 30s, low 40s.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree. I would imagine the line would be right around where it was for the Cal game. Like, I don't see a reason for it to be, real big one way or the other compared to that. Because what did that end up at? 3.5, something like that. I mean, it was right around that same number where on a neutral field it'd be a pick 'em. I could see it being right around there. It's interesting. Well, I guess, probably the biggest story going into that game is what lessons did Eli Holstein take out of the Cal game, right? Easily his worst game of the season, the worst game of the season for the offense, which is not unconnected to the fact that it was Eli Holstein's worst game. I sort of feel like, and he said it after the game, I mean, he just has to take what the defense gives him. And I don't think he was doing that against Cal as well as he had done in the previous 5 games. I think Cal was the best defense they've faced, but I think Holstein also didn't play his best game regardless of the defense. I feel like he was trying to take shots too much because he's made those plays. But I think he probably needed to settle in and just take what they give him. You talked to him after the game. You were there for his post-game press conference, and press conferences are what they are. But do you get the sense that that's the lesson he's going to take from that game?
I do, and it was a very similar press conference to the one he had after Cincinnati, where he immediately took ownership. He knew all the mistakes he made even before he even watched the film. Like it was already running through his head. You could kind of tell. So, he did give credit to Cal's defense, and in fairness, they are really good. They lead the country in interceptions for a reason. They definitely that one throw, like the one interception. I mean, like you obviously could tell, like, okay, they showed him one thing and then dropped back into the other thing, and it was just there. So they kind of baited him into the exact throw they wanted him to make. So I don't know. It felt like throughout the game there was a lot of just like Gavin Bartholomew's running across the middle, and CJ Lee, and the one thing like I don't get is Desmond Reed won ACC Receiver of the Week 2 weeks ago. He had one target, and it was a 19-yard catch on a linebacker. So I have to believe him on a linebacker was there more than once. So I don't know. I think I don't know if he got caught up in the moment. We're 5-0. I got to do everything. I'm having this great year. I want to keep pace at the top of the league. I want to keep my name in the Heisman contention and all that kind of stuff. And then at the end of the day, you look at what Pitt has: 277 yards of offense. He had 128 passing yards. They were like 1 of 13 on third downs or something crazy. I was looking at that stat line. I was like, this looks a lot like a 2023 stat line, to be honest with you. But I don't know. You could just tell he was mad after the game, and right. I guess anyone would be after a poor game, but like it felt a lot like how he did against Cincinnati, where he was just like he kind of knew before he even watched film.
Well, and it's funny to make that comparison because I sort of felt like the Cal game was 60 minutes of the first half against Cincinnati. You know what I mean? That's what it reminded me of just forcing stuff, not making great reads, and he got away with a lot of those throws, and those were some of the biggest plays of the season that he made throughout the first 5 games. But he needed to recognize the situation. He needed to know again about what defense he was going up against, and again, like you said, I mean, take the Gavin Bartholomew's, take the Sincere Lees, the Kanate Mumfields. Those guys are open. Those opportunities are there. Maybe it was a little bit tougher against Cal, but I think Holstein could have done probably a lot better with a number of those throws. Let me see. My hypothetical that I've been throwing out, I put it on Twitter, I put it on the message boards, and I talked about it on the post-game show. So you've probably seen it. Like, let's say Cal makes the 40-yard field goal, right? Pitt gets the ball back. Let's say after a kickoff, they kick it short. Pitt gets the ball back at their own 20. They're down 18-17, and they got like a minute 45 in a timeout. They still win the game?
I think there's a good chance. I think we even exchanged texts at that point. But yeah, I mean, you get a half decent return, couple passes, and you're almost in Ben Saul's territory already. So like,
yeah.
I mean, the way things are going, you can kind of stall out around the 35-40 and still feel pretty good. So if that's all the further you have to get, I think even with Eli struggling, like there is still some of that factor where he kind of turns it on when he has to. And I think he probably would have gotten them like 3 or 4 first downs and to get into Ben Saul's range. So I didn't think they were done if that kid made the field goal. I thought there was still at least a chance, even a good chance at that.
Yeah. I think so too. Because and a number of people that replied to my hypothetical were like, they couldn't even get 10 yards for a first down. So how are you asking this? But it's a different thing, right? I mean, it's different when you're trying to kill the clock to get 10 yards for a first down to win the game. That's a different mentality and a different approach than when you're going in a 2-minute drill trying to get 40, 45, 50 yards to get into field goal range. I think, Holstein makes a lot. Like he did at the end of that drive when it was 3rd and 11, he throws a 7-yard pass to Gavin Bartholomew. I think he finds those things and chips away and gets downfield, which is ultimately what he should have done for the bulk of the game. But and they also failed on that last drive because it was a bad snap that he kind of fumbled on the quarterback run on 2nd down, which probably would have gotten them into at least 3rd and 3, if not shorter, if he ran. Because he was actually, you said they only converted 1 3rd down. It was on a Holstein run. I think it was the only 3rd down they converted. So, yeah, not a great day on 3rd down, and not a great day for the offense overall. But it says something when you're able to play your worst game, at least on one side of the ball, and still come out with a win. What about on defense, though? Just like that was the worst game of the season for the offense, I mean, I think that was the best game of the season for the defense, wasn't it?
I thought so. And it was their brightest stars kind of shining through. I mean, it was Kyle Lewis doing really good things. It was Donovan McMillan having 1 million tackles. It was like the vaunted Pitt pass rush coming back like it did, 3 or 4 seasons ago. I mean, I think that defense is a little bit better than they were probably given credit for those first 5 games. And I think we both thought this season it was going to take a couple weeks till we finally said, oh, like they got it. And I think they're getting it now. I think they got a little bit healthier up front. I think the cornerbacks have settled in. The linebackers are just simply really good. And, you have pretty solid safety play. So right now, I mean, yeah, they give up some yards. And I get when people get frustrated, like, because that North Carolina game, you saw in our message boards, like, a lot of people are like, they didn't play well. I'm like, give up 2 touchdowns. Like, if you give up 2 touchdowns in a conference game on the road, you're going to win. Yeah. And they did. So I think they're trending in the right direction. So I like a lot of the things I saw out of defense. I don't know. Like we saw today, like all the All-American midseason lists and midseason All-ACC. People are absolutely missing the boat on Kyle Lewis. Like, this dude is that good. He is doing things that nobody else in the country is doing. The stat I threw out the other day with the 50 tackles, like he's the only one with 50 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions. Yeah, yep. The only defender, not linebacker, the only defender in Power 4 football that is doing that. So, yeah, he is an All-American. He is an All-ACC player. So when you have a guy like that on your defense, you're going to be pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree completely. I think when people sometimes look at the yardage, I've made this point a couple of times this week, I think they're not considering how much the defense is on the field. So they might be 64th in the country in yards per game allowed, but they're 21st in the country in yards per play allowed. So, yeah, they're giving up a lot of yards over the entirety of the game. But I think part of that is because they're on the field so much because Pitt's offense moves so quickly. On a per play basis, they're top 25 in the nation. They're top 21. Same with rushing yards, which they're not bad against the run. I think they're 31st in rushing yards allowed per game. They're 7th in rushing yards per attempt. So they're not really. Meanwhile, they've faced the 18th most plays of any defense in the country and the 26th most passing plays. So I mean, you're going to have that. You're going to give up some yards. What they've been able to do is clamp down. They've given up 2 touchdowns, like we pointed out a bunch of times, 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter all season. 6 games, they've given up a total of 16 points in the fourth quarter, which I'd say that's pretty remarkable. If you're holding teams to less than a field goal per game in the fourth quarter, you're giving yourself a chance to win. And I think that's what they've done. They've given the team a chance to win most weeks. Now, and the other thing too is like we've talked so much about the offense and how they played, the comeback against Cincinnati, the comeback against West Virginia. I mean, all those comebacks with all these big touchdown drives were sort of, had to be balanced with a stop on defense, right? Like we haven't talked as much about the stops that those guys were making to get the ball back to the offense to give them a chance to go down and win. So I think I'm with you. I think the pass rush is coming along. How much impact do you think Sean Fitzsimmons has made? I feel like it's a lot. He didn't have any stats out of this last. He might have had a couple tackles or something. He didn't have any pressures out of this last game, according to Pro Football Focus, after having like 4 at Carolina. But I think his impact, I think, is tangible. I think you see it a lot. Like almost every play, he is pushing the offensive line back and getting into the backfield.
Yeah, I think he's just naturally disruptive, and he was in high school. Like, I think as a senior in high school, he had like something like 50-some tackle for losses, but like that's just what he is. That's what he does. So, and I think Pitt's defensive line, Pitt's pass rush, it works off against each other because everyone's always wondering like, where's Nate Matlack's sacks? Then someone today tweeted like he leads the country in pressures. So if you have a guy like that's constantly winning, then yeah, Jimmy Scott can get some sacks. You know what I mean? Like they all play off each other. So I do see Fitzsimmons getting a good push. I think he stuffed some run plays. I thought he was really good against North Carolina. I thought he did some really good stuff that game. So I think just having another weapon up there, just another really good player, is just going to help them in the long run.
Yeah, and that push from him up the middle and Matlack coming off the edge. Although I think Pro Football Focus, who said he's tied for the lead among all Power 4 defenders in pressures, I think they credited him with 8 pressures against Cal, which, all right, if that's what I didn't, like I felt like he did well and was getting into the backfield. I don't know if I thought he had 8 pressures. That seems like a lot, but all right, that certainly boosts the number. But as those things are happening, you either, like you said, you have Jimmy Scott getting there, or your Braylon Lovelace getting 2 sacks, or Kyle Lewis getting another sack, or Rasheem Biles has 2 or 3 sacks this season. So they're all sort of feasting when you get that push up front, which was the thing we were the most concerned about, was whether or not they would have that push, and it seems to be developing. I'm curious to see how much of that's sustainable. I think Cal, they've given up, I think, 18 sacks coming into the Pitt game. So it's not like they were doing a great job protecting the quarterback. Mendoza was getting hit a lot all season long. But you still got to be able to take advantage of that. When you play those teams that don't have a great pass protection, you've got to be able to capitalize. On the attendance matter, Joe New is the super chatter. He said it was hard to tell the crowd size because so many fans are in the club level. Yeah, my perception on the crowd size is always a little bit skewed when we watch from the press box because of where we sit.
Above us. Yeah.
We can't see above us. We don't really have a good view of the home sideline. And the home sideline is always going to be more filled than the visitor side. I think at the West Virginia game where it looked like the visitors' upper deck was empty, which it basically was, I think the home side was pretty much full. I'm not sure there were many empty seats over there. So I don't have a good perspective on it. You just kind of look around and you sort of, sometimes I almost base it on like how my drive in is. Like if I run into a lot of traffic, if I come over the bridge and I look down and the parking lots are full, as I walk through the parking lots, I kind of judge a little bit based off of that. I think they've run into some ticketing issues this year. I think it was the West Virginia game that people were having a hard time scanning their tickets. So I wonder if there's still residual issues there. But I mean, whatever. I mean, Pitt fans, I've been trying for 20 years to figure out why they do or don't go to games, why they do or don't do any of the things they do or don't do. But and I still haven't figured it out. So yeah, I don't have a great view, but we'll see what Thursday night looks like. Josh Newark says Kenny Johnson, his teammate at Dallastown, Michael Scott, the wide receiver recruit, decommitted from Arizona State today. Could Pitt be back in the mix? I missed that. Did you see that, Jim? That Michael Scott decommitted?
Yeah, he was interested in Pitt for a while. That I don't know if things cooled on Pitt's end or his end or mutually, but I don't know if Pitt's like starving for more 5'10" receivers in this class. It seems like they have a lot of them already, some really good ones, but it's something to keep an eye on for sure.
How many of these guys, I forget, it's been a while since I've thought about this. How many of these guys do we count as receivers? On Rivals, we list 5 of them as receivers. I think Jakarian Turner, is he the one that could play multiple spots that's going to, or is it Khalil Sterling that might be a running back, might be a receiver?
Folks is definitely a receiver. I think
Right.
Sterling's a receiver. Yates is a receiver. Kinsler has only caught passes in high school this year, but he was listed as a running back.
Right. Oh, and Manny Taylor's a linebacker, right?
Yes.
Emmanuel Taylor. So, and then Turner, Jakarian Turner, was he the guy who could do some different things, or was he just a receiver?
It seems like Jakarian Turner and Sinquan Smith are the guys they're targeting to be the next Desmond Reed. That's okay. They are running backs, small running backs, but that's what they do.
Yeah. Okay. So even if you move a bunch of those guys, you still got at least 3 receivers in the class, if not more. So maybe they do, maybe they don't, but I don't know. I'd be curious to see how many are they at right now? They're at 23 commitments. Is that what we're counting?
But I think the long snapper is added to the class.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I don't even think either one of us did that. Someone was just no, here's Henry Cersei.
I think that happened. Yeah, I think I noticed that somebody put that on there, but I think he's coming as a walk-on. So maybe 22 commitments in the class. It's probably a good number to finish at. Mm-hmm. But we assume guys will move up and down. Some will move off the commitment list, and maybe they'll have to go find some new options. But I don't know though, because the new signing day now is the Wednesday after the conference championship games, which I think is December 4th or something. So if you're going to do it, I mean, you have less than 2 months until signing day. If you're a recruit, you know what I mean? So if you're going to start going to look at other schools, you don't have many opportunities. You have that weekend of the conference championship games, which for all but 2 teams in each conference will be an open weekend that everybody can go and take visits to. So maybe there'll be a lot of action there, that final weekend before signing day. But, it's a shorter schedule now. I think there's less time for courtship than there has been in previous years, where there were 2 or 3 weekends between the end of the season and signing day. Now you really just have 1. So that's going to change things a little bit. Finkel Studio says, hey, Chris, big fan. We got to root for Louisville to upset Miami and Virginia to upset Clemson. So the Syracuse game will determine the top of the conference. I'll be at the game 7-0, baby. I mean, you got to root for Pitt to beat Syracuse, right? That's sort of the number one. I don't know if it matters about being at the top of the conference right now, does it? And I would almost think, don't you want Clemson to stay hot and stay winning so that game means a whole lot if Pitt can keep winning?
That's kind of my thought. In my eyes, I would want to see Pitt and Clemson both in the top 15, one of the biggest games of the day in November. I think that would be better than if Clemson starts losing games. And yeah, I mean, I guess it would be better for Pitt's hunt in the ACC race, but perception wise and all that and big game atmosphere, I don't know. I think it'd be cool to have top 5 Clemson in town against top 20 or top 15 Pitt, right?
I mean, if they're still undefeated at that point, it might be top 12. I mean, depending on how some things shake out. I mean, Clemson right now is a top 10 team. I don't necessarily think you want them losing to Virginia at home. There's some interesting lines this week. Clemson's minus 21.5. And I don't think Virginia is great, but they're better than I think a lot of people expect. They're better than I expected them to be.
Yeah.
And I could see them now. I mean, last week, Clemson was minus 22 or something against Wake Forest. And I was I don't think they're going to beat them by that much. I think Clemson will win. And they ended up blowing them out. It's interesting that Clemson is basically the same line against Virginia who I think Virginia's quite a bit better than Wake Forest. I don't know if Clemson I mean, I was wrong last week, so maybe I'll be wrong here again, but I don't know if Clemson covers 21.5 against Virginia, even at home.
Yeah, I was a little surprised Virginia beat Boston College a couple weeks ago. Like that was one that surprised me.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have a hard time like thinking they're going to go into Death Valley and really truly give them a great game. I don't know, but
they just need to lose by only 3 touchdowns, not 21.5 points. You know what I mean? Like they can cover if they lose by what's that?
It's a tricky line.
Yeah, I think so too, because I could see them losing by 3 touchdowns, which would still
be enough.
Still cover. Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of Boston College, how about Boston College is at Virginia Tech tomorrow night? Virginia Tech is -7.5. That's a huge line. Like, I still think Boston College is pretty good. I think Thomas Castellanos is pretty dangerous. And I still think Boston College is one of these like sneaky, dangerous teams in the league. Like 7.5. I know the game's in Blacksburg, but I don't think Virginia Tech's all that good. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Boston College wins that game outright. Does that seem like a big line to you, or am I way off base here?
No, I agree. I haven't been that impressed with Virginia Tech, and like I think Castellanos is one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and I assume he's healthy. I know he missed the game 2 weeks ago, but I think he's back to full health and playing. So unless his status is up in the air, that line doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Yeah. And when do you think the last time was? I don't have the answer to this, but when do you think the last time was Duke was favored against Florida State? Because they're -3 at home, but they're -3 right now.
They had a couple okay teams somewhat recently, right? But probably not like favored over Florida State.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. I mean, first of all, they were in the Coastal. Florida State was in the Atlantic, so they probably didn't play all that many times. But I got to think that's one of the first times in a long time Duke has been favored there. I'm just kind of glancing over the other ACC games. Miami's at Louisville. Miami's -4.5. Wake Forest is at UConn, and UConn's the favorite because Wake Forest is pretty rough this year. Georgia Tech is hosting Notre Dame. Well, I mean, they're hosting Notre Dame. It's at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I hate that. Like, I'm really tired of the play it on campus. Whether it's Notre Dame or any of these games, like play them on campus. I don't. It's Notre Dame. It's going to draw, right? Like, I guess you can make more money because Mercedes-Benz Stadium is bigger than Georgia Tech Stadium, but like, just play it on campus. It's far cooler to play college football games in college football stadiums, don't you think?
No, I agree. And I think I saw like in a couple of years, like they're going to host Georgia there. I mean, like, that's an away game for you. Like, it's your home game, but it's going to be an away game. I remember like I traveled down to Georgia Tech a couple years ago, and I think the night before we were like at a bar with like somewhat close to campus, and we were like, "Oh, you guys get like a crowd for games?" He's like, "The Georgia game?"
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about Pitt being like sometimes maybe being an afterthought to other things. I mean, like imagine you're the only team actually in your city. And it's another college team that just like completely like the SEC championship game is a bigger deal in Atlanta than any Georgia Tech game ever is. But either way, it's Notre Dame's -11.5. I don't know. I don't know about that one too. Like I don't know about Notre Dame, and I still kind of like Georgia Tech. Like I think Haynes King is good. Jamal Haynes is good. Like I don't know if Georgia Tech's going to win, but like kind of like with I tell you the truth, like Louisville hosting Miami, like or Boston College going to Virginia Tech. I think there's some upsets that could happen here. Again, I'm terrible. I think I got every game wrong that I picked last week. So bet accordingly by going, basically Costanzaing me and going the exact opposite. But like, I think Georgia Tech can give them a game. I mean, Haynes King, this is his audition for Notre Dame next year. So, if they're going to pick another, ACC quarterback from a middling program, I would think he's the next in line, right? I don't know who the other good option would be. Because the Duke kid already transferred once. I don't think he's going to transfer again. I don't think they're going to go back to the Wake Forest well. So I don't think they're going to try and get Hank Bachmeier. Maybe the Virginia guy. Maybe that's the guy they'll go after.
Andrea?
Yeah, maybe him or I don't know if Castellanos is quite the guy they're looking for, or Kyron Drones. I don't know. Like I don't know who's Notre Dame's next ACC transfer quarterback. It's probably Haynes King, I would think. Is he the most likely candidate?
I think that's who they would probably target.
That's who they would have to go after. Well, this is his audition, so it's his opportunity to get seen. NC State's at Cal. Cal is -10. Kind of, I don't know if they're that great of an offense, but I think they might cover that. And then SMU is at Stanford as a 16.5-point favorite. That's a huge number on the road. I mean, like that's like Clemson at Wake type of number, you know? Like, I mean, Clemson, I think that game was at Wake last week, right? Clemson play at Wake. Pretty sure they did. But I mean, does SMU cover 16.5 on the road?
I don't know. I'm looking at Stanford's only scored 2 touchdowns over the past 2 games, so their offense just
so they're due, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, it's against Notre Dame and Notre Dame and Virginia Tech, so you know that's. I just wanted to see if maybe they scored a defensive touchdown or special teams because that would be even funnier. Oh man, they scored first against Notre Dame too. They probably were like riding high, like here we go, Cardinal, we got this, and yeah, Notre Dame rattled off 49 unanswered points after that. So, yeah, not exactly what they're looking for. Well, maybe SMU can do it. Somebody said there's a comment here. Green said we can't let Syracuse be a trap game. I don't think there's going to be any danger of a trap game. Like, yeah, SMU is a huge game, but number one, that SMU game is like 10 days later, right? It's not like the next Saturday. You know, I think the fact that there's like basically another off weekend between and it's a Thursday night kind of separates it enough that they're not going to be looking ahead. And number two, I just don't think they're going to look ahead. I mean, I think they know they got a scare last Saturday. I think they know they maybe got a little lucky to get out of that with a win because it wasn't just the missed field goal. It was all the penalties and it was the 2-point conversion nonsense and everything else that Cal did to give Pitt the game, even though Pitt tried to give it right back. I think they know they got away with one. And I think as a result, I don't think they're looking ahead at anything here. Do you?
I don't think you can even consider this a trap game. Like Syracuse is 5-1. Kyle McCord's third in the country in passing. Like this is a legitimate worry. Like you can't look ahead to SMU because like all your attention has to be on this game. Like it's a big game in its own right. So like a trap game to me means like Syracuse is 1-5. They fired their head coach mid-year, like something like that. Like, no, like they have a brand new head coach. There's a lot of optimism in Syracuse, and they have a quarterback third in the country in passing. So yeah, it's a legitimate worry.
It's a good point. Let's see. Swim Boyd says we should do a Black Friday pregame show for basketball like we did before Thanksgiving last year with guests. So Black Friday, that's the Ohio State game. It's on the Peacock network.
Yeah, I don't know what. I guess I'm gonna have to like subscribe to Peacock or find someone that has it.
I might just drive to Columbus. I mean,
at that point, yeah, maybe
better than subscribing to Peacock. Who wants to do that? Yuck. I don't. Wait, there was something else I saw that's actually on Peacock right now that I might actually want to watch.
Not
like
Big
they had
Ten football.
What?
Not Big Ten football.
No, like. They had like all the Fast and the Furious movies or something like that. They had something really good that, you know, I would want to dig into. Maybe they have they probably have like Community and Parks and Rec, right? Because those were NBC shows. So because I don't think those are on Netflix anymore. So maybe I will subscribe to Peacock. As far as the IRS knows, I'll subscribe to Peacock for the Pitt Ohio State game. But for myself personally, I'll be subscribing to watch Community. You know who I think is probably a big fan of Community and Parks and Rec? The people at Homefieldapparel.com, especially Parks and Rec, because that was based in Indiana, right? And Homefield is an Indiana company. I forgot to put on a Homefield gear tonight, but Jim, what do you got? Is that Homefield?
Yeah, I got Delaware.
The Fighting Joe Flacco's.
Yeah, it's a long sleeve.
A long sleeve. How's that feel?
It's great. It's very
looks
comfortable.
Nice. Looks nice. I like that logo. That blue hand looks like he got a little beat up. Got a little.
I'm not like a big like Family Guy, but like there was like a scene where like Peter fights a chicken like 10 minutes, and it kind of looks like this chicken or the blue hen here.
Is that the one where he like hurts his knee and stops for like 45 seconds, just like?
I think it might be.
And there was like a what did they start fighting about? He had like a coupon for chicken nuggets. It was something, and the coupon was
They
expired
were on a
or something
bus,
like
and it
that.
was like the longest cutscene ever. And
Yeah, he fought
but
the
it
chicken
looks like this blue hen.
a little bit, but I don't think it blue.
No, but I mean,
Okay. That was a long time ago when I watched that. It very well could have been blue, and I wouldn't remember. But anyway, that is a sweet shirt. Now, is this the conclusion of your home field wardrobe, or do you have another one you haven't shown us yet?
no, this is 4 weeks in a row of a new
That's
shirt.
awesome.
So yeah.
That's awesome. I like that. Are you going to have it in a rotation now?
I don't know. Do I have to how long do I have to keep going with home field every week?
You don't have to keep wearing home field every week, Jim. You get to keep wearing home field every
I
week.
want
home
to.
field, you want to wear home field every week because home field makes the best college gear that people are going to find, whether it's Pitt, whether it's the University of Delaware or Evansville, or what else have we had? Fordham, or what was the other one you had, Jim? Western Kentucky, right?
Western Kentucky.
And was there one more?
I had
DePaul, that's what it is. Yeah. And so any of those schools, I mean, the shirts are awesome. They look sweet. And you guys have seen Jim wearing his. I've had the Pitt shirts on. I got the Pitt is it shirt that I've worn after the last 2 wins on the post-game show. We'll just keep doing that because that seems to be working, and it's the most comfortable shirt I have. They're super soft. They look great. And if you go to homefieldapparel.com and use the promo code PIT24, you can get 15% off your first order. So the best Pitt shirts you're going to own, the best looking graphics on the highest quality shirts, and you get 15% off with the promo code PIT24. So go do it at homefieldapparel.com. Fickle Studio says, I thought North Carolina was a trap game, but we handled business. This 2024 Pitt team does not pit it up. The offense is going to look great next Thursday, and the defense will be great too. The bye will help. I do think the bye helps. I think they really got an opportunity there to come out of that game, Jim, and work on stuff. They had 10 days. They had 3 extra days to try and correct some stuff. I don't think they went on the road recruiting this week. I think they really just sort of bunkered down and went to work. And obviously you can try and get guys healthy, whoever's, capable of getting healthy. But I think they settled in and went to work. And I think that's Cade Bell and Eli Holstein, obviously, and the offensive staff. And I think the defensive guys have a lot to do as well. So I think this bye comes at a good time. And this second half of the schedule is distinctly tougher than the first half, but it sort of feels like everything's lining up just right for them to gear themselves up for that stretch run, doesn't it?
It does. And yeah, I interviewed a bunch of the current commits this week, and I was like, are the coaches coming to EC? And they're like, no. Yeah. They came 2 weeks ago at the other bye week. I was like, right. Yeah, I guess there are 2 bye weeks. But yeah, you could kind of tell they were in game prep mode and kind of getting ready for this game. And I think technically game week starts Friday because Pat Narduzzi's doing his normal Monday press conference on a Friday, which is I think the first time he's ever done that.
Yeah. Usually he would still do it on a Monday. They just wouldn't really have anything else for the rest of the week.
So yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, so technically game prep for Syracuse kind of starts tomorrow or Monday or Friday. But yeah, they're full steam ahead already. So
Friday is Monday and Monday is Friday, and I lose track. Yeah, I mean they're digging in on it, and they need to because it's a good team, it's a good offense, and I think they have to have a sense. Not that you wouldn't always every season be working hard at every opportunity you've got, but there's a real chance here to do something. There's a real chance to do something this season, and I think they understand. Well, if they want to really do something this season, every week. I mean, you've got to have 100% focus and get after it every week. Josh Newark says, why does Pitt never play away Thursday night games? So as we're sitting here, I'm kind of glancing back. They played at Boston College on a Thursday night in 2014. Do any other Thursday night road games come to mind for you, Jim?
The 2020 Georgia Tech game, of course.
Yeah, right. We just talked about that.
We already
right?
talked about that.
There was something else I just saw here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not a lot is coming to mind. Yeah, it kind of seems like most of them are on Thursday. Or at home, rather.
Yeah. That's, I mean,
like tomorrow night, like Virginia Tech plays like Thursday night football in college. Like that's Virginia Tech's thing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
always been Virginia Tech's thing.
Has Pitt played at Virginia Tech on a Thursday night?
I'm think like maybe back in the Big East days, but like
Maybe.
I don't know if I want to sit here and research that right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking down in my media guide right now because that's cool and compelling thing for me to do. Drawing a blank. Yeah, nothing else really comes to mind, and there's no dates that are jumping off the page as obviously Thursday. It's all like, you just look at the other dates around the games, and you're like, is that +7 or -7? Oh, it's not? Okay, that might be something there. But I think that Boston College game, and like you mentioned, the Georgia Tech game, but I don't really see 1st 7. Yeah, I mean,
You would think like it's like because like the Big East was kind of like made for the Thursday night games. I remember I remember Pitt hosting Wednesday games, but not on the road.
There was. So I think they played at Syracuse on a Friday night in 2019. It looks like, because that was on the 18th, and then they played Miami on the 26th, which would be 8 days. So assuming Miami was, there's all kinds of weird stuff. I might have to look at the 2019 calendar because they played at Duke on the 5th. Maybe that was the Thursday night game. No, they played at Duke on the 5th, at Syracuse on the 18th. So that's a 13-day difference, right?
Yeah.
And then they played Miami on the 26th. And then they played at Georgia Tech on the 2nd, which will be a week later. So, yeah, Syracuse must have been a Friday night.
That must have been it. It was.
Yeah, that must have been a Friday night. So there's a Friday night game on the road. I'm not going to go through this anymore, but wait, what was that was a Virginia Tech game at home that they played Virginia Tech in 2016. I was like trying to add that up. Anyway, so Josh, Pitt doesn't play many road weeknight games, but they've had a few here and there. All right, let's scroll through. Okay, Josh Newark says one thing I paid attention to against Cal was how often Gavin Bartholomew was split out wide as the receiver closest to the sideline. On those plays, Eli never looked his way. Is that the best use of El Barto? Well, hold on. I actually have numbers right in front of me on how much he did that. In the Cal game, he was split out wide on 5 snaps. He was in the slot for 5 snaps, and he was in line for 15 snaps. He was targeted 3 times, caught all 3 for 29 yards. So I don't think they have him out there much. He's played most of his snaps this season have been in line. He actually has, I believe, the 3rd most snaps out of the slot on passing plays this year, behind Raphael Williams and Kanate Mumfield. Williams has played like more than 200 snaps. That's like the only place he plays is in the slot, and he's pretty much the only guy who does it. I want to say Mumfield has about 70 or 75 snaps out of the slot, and then El Barto is behind him with like 50 some. So they're putting him in the slot a bit. They haven't had him out wide all that much. I don't know what to say about the usage of Gavin Bartholomew right now. It's hard to find a lot of issues with this offense. They're obviously getting great production out of Kanate Mumfield. I think Kenny Johnson's having a really good year. Raphael Williams is like leading the team or tied for the team lead in receiving touchdowns. I mean, like, it's hard to say, boy, there's something really missing. Like, we could complain a lot last year about the passing game and not using Gavin Bartholomew. I still think they could get something more out of him. I still think he could be used better and more frequently than he is. But again, it's hard to find too many complaints with his passing game overall, even though we're coming off the worst performance of the season.
Yeah, I've said that all along. Like the ball can only go to so many places. I think Gavin Bartholomew's more of a threat closer to the offensive line than he is to the sideline. But again, it's kind of nitpicking. But again, on further research, 2012 Pitt at Cincinnati, second game of the Paul Chryst era, Thursday night football.
Was that a Thursday?
No names on the back of the uniforms. Was it that season?
I don't think they had him yet. I think they got him a couple games later. That was yeah, wow. That was when they had like 12 guys get suspended for the season opener too.
Yeah,
because that was a team that only had a few like Jeff Capel's first 4 teams looked at that 2012 Pitt football team and said, "Damn, they got some culture issues, man." Because they had some real culture. Those guys I just felt bad for because like most of the guys on that 2012 team were on the 2010 team, and they all loved Dave Wanstead, and they felt like they got screwed by Pitt when Pitt fired Dave Wanstead, and then like 11 months later, well, no, like a month later, the weird, they got, I don't know who they thought they got screwed by when Michael Haywood got fired. And then like 11 months after that, they felt like they got screwed by Todd Graham. So by the time Paul Chryst arrived, he had a team full of guys who were just like, dude, nobody cares about this football team right now. So why would I care about this football team? And they acted like it. And it's how you end up losing at UConn, going down 24-0 at halftime against UConn. And like the bowl game between Graham and Chryst, when there were like 5 coaches in Birmingham for the second trip to Birmingham. Like I've never seen a less interested team. Look, I just gave a thumbs up. I didn't mean to give a thumbs up.
Mm-hmm.
Like every practice, it'd be like it was going to go from whatever time, 9:30 until noon or something. And they would be done by like 11:15. Like they called every practice early. They had about 5 plays in their playbook. Like nobody wanted to be there. They acted like they didn't want to be there. Nobody tried, and they got their tails kicked by either SMU or Ole Miss. I think they played SMU that year. It just got beat up because it was just because nobody cared. Like they were so fraught over the whole of Todd Graham leaving and just kind of they're like, well, nobody cares about us. You know what I mean? Nobody cares about our program. Yeah. And they played like it and they acted like it. And so you go into the next season, you got like 12 guys suspended for the first game. He doesn't put names on the jerseys because, they didn't even care about the names on the front of the jerseys. They almost put in a valiant effort to beat Notre Dame, but then they embarrassed themselves against, UConn. It was just, that was ugly. But you're right. They had a Thursday night game on the road. So there's that. Let's see. Joe New says after the Cal win, Pitt dropped something like 8 spots in the ESPN Power Index. As ZC717 says, the Power Index means about as much as preseason top 25 rankings do. Yep, agree about that. Sideshow Sean says Pitt versus Syracuse should be listed as a number 8 Pittsburgh sports rivalry. What do you think the first 7 are? Do you think it means all of Pittsburgh sports?
I guess, because I don't think Pitt has 7 rivals.
Other. I mean, are we going to include Pitt basketball? All right. Anyway.
Like Flyers, Penguins?
Yeah, that's one.
Like pretty much every division game for the Steelers.
That's 3 more. That's 4. Pitt, West Virginia, Pitt, Penn State. That's 5 and 6. So
I don't think the Pirates against Major League Baseball.
Pirates against $100 million payroll.
I don't. What? Sean, you got to tell us what the first 7 are.
Yeah, I'm trying to scroll through to see if he followed that up, but
that's just kind of a weird this is the 8th best rivalry. But hey, they've played every year since 1955.
They have. I mean, it's the longest running rivalry. Mm-hmm. It's it's that. So, and there have been interesting games along the way, compelling games along the way. Josh Newark says, was Caleb Junko being named to the Ray Guy watch list the biggest surprise of the year? So yesterday or today, I guess it was, Jim, I did my midseason awards on the Morning Pit. MVP, I picked Desmond Reed. And then I was like, well, I guess he has to be Offensive Player of the Year. I can't pick someone else for Offensive Player of the Year if I already picked Desmond Reed as the MVP, right? And so he was that. Defensive Player of the Year was Kyle Lewis. Most clutch player, I picked Ben Sauls. Coach of the year, I went with Ryan Manilak because I think he's done a great job with the linebackers. Biggest surprise of the year, I went with Eli Holstein. because it's a redshirt freshman quarterback who's never played, who transferred. You have no idea what he can do, and he's 15 touchdowns, and so I picked him as my biggest surprise of the year. What would you say has been your biggest surprise? If you were going to pick a player or a player's accomplishments, what would you say is the biggest surprise this season?
Yeah, I mean, Holstein would have to be up there just because everyone was kind of led to believe that Nate Yardell was going to be the starter.
Yeah, right.
I'm not terribly surprised by Desmond Reed at this point because I kind of started to buy in late and during training camp. Yeah,
and Reed at least had like college experience, FCS, but still college. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he had played in college games, he had produced in college games, he had success, he had something of a track record, more than Eli Holstein. Junko, so he averaged 50 yards per kick, right? 50.7, I think, against Cal.
Mm-hmm.
But Cal and Carolina, he had maybe 3 punts between those two games, maybe more, that were not good punts. He didn't hit them well. They were short. It bounced and it rolled. And he gets credit for those yards. Those are his punts. He averaged 50.7 against Cal. That's really good, but they were not good kicks. I don't think you can really control how the ball is going to bounce once it lands. So yes, very good numbers. Yes, good field position for Pitt. No, I'm not sure you're out of the woods yet with Caleb Junko.
He's only had one shank. Again, I think it was against Cincinnati. Just out of bounds, 15-yarder. Everything else, they weren't good before, but that was the only time where it's been
Yeah.
And, Cincinnati immediately scored and went up to 27-6. You're oh well, now they're definitely gonna lose.
That was the only one that was Wake Forest bad.
Yeah.
But a number of those in the last 2 games, I think if they just hit and rolled out of bounds where they would have only been 30, 35 yards. You know what I mean? Not what you need to be. Now, like I say, he gets credit for those yards. There's no question about it. But it's, we'll see. I think it's still worth keeping an eye on. Paul Sebastian wants to know, what do you think is the biggest weakness on the team this year? I mean, coming out of the game where the offense played the worst game of the season, it's Eli Holstein's youth and inexperience and how he bounces back. I mean, I feel like we both had the default answer of the pass rush. The offensive line now is probably the biggest question mark, I think, going forward with the injuries. Unknown status, probably a not good outlook for Ryan Jacoby and Branson Taylor. So that's probably your biggest question mark, I would think, going forward. Is there anything that would be bigger than that?
No, I mean, I think that is just going to be one of the biggest stories going into the Syracuse game in the second half of the season. And since we mentioned that Pat Narduzzi is going to talk on Friday, I think we're going to get some clarity on at least, some of those situations. But yeah, I mean, the offensive line depth is going to be tested because I think they could get by. I think they went into the season with 7-8 guys they felt comfortable with. And if you're down 2 of them, then okay, you need to find that 7th and 8th guy over again. So I think that's going to be a little bit of an adventure going into next week.
Yeah. Joe New wants to know if we know the win-loss record for the teams Pitt already played and the win-loss record for the next 6 games. I don't know that off the top of my head. I'm not going to go and add it up. I know that the next 6 teams have a much better combined record than the previous 6, right? I think we can probably agree on that, right? I mean,
yeah.
By a decent amount. I mean, Clemson obviously has 1 loss. SMU has 1 loss. What is Louisville has 2 losses. Syracuse has 1 loss, right? And Virginia has 2 losses. So
yeah, considerably better.
Yeah, Boston College right now has 2 losses. So, everybody has 1 or 2 losses, whereas I think the other 6 teams have more than that. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. Let's see. Rich Campsey points out that Pitt played at UConn in 2010. I do remember that being a night game. I wouldn't be surprised if you're right that was a Thursday.
Yeah, I believe it was. Actually, I went back the whole way to 2008. They had a really good Thursday win that year. They beat South Florida, I think.
Yeah. South Florida was a top 10 team at that point.
LaShawn McCoy had a really good game. That was the
That
Thursday night road game.
Yep. And that was like Jonathan Baldwin had like a really long catch in that game. It's funny that year because like that year, as much as any Pitt team in recent history, that team was really, really good at just completely wasting positive momentum because they had great momentum all offseason. You know, after the 2007 game, the 13-9 game, like hype was through the roof, and they walk out on the field and they lose the Bowling Green in the opener. Like, right there goes the whole balloon. All the air comes out of the balloon. So then they beat Buffalo. They beat Iowa at home. Big deal. You beat a Big Ten team. They go to Syracuse. They win. They get that South Florida game on the road. They win at Navy. They get 3 wins on the road. They're now 5-1. All the momentum's back up. They come home and they play Rutgers and they lose 54-34. Right? And they build it up again. They go to Notre Dame and they win. They beat Louisville. They lost to Cincinnati, but Cincinnati was really good. They finished the season. They beat West Virginia in a god-awful, boring game, but one that was very inspiring and heartwarming to Yinzers everywhere with all the running. And then they go to Connecticut and win, a place they'd never won before, building the momentum up. They're 8-3 or 9-3. They have a 9-3 regular season. They have all this momentum. They built it up again for the third time, and then they go to the Sun Bowl. They cast off momentum and positive vibes with great force, furious anger, and vengeance, and whatnot. So yeah, but that was 2008. Why are we talking about that? Oh, because that Thursday night game against South Florida. Yeah, that was pretty good. All right, let's see. T-Man says the teams left to play have a combined record of 27-9. So there you go. I'm not going to check his math. I'll trust you. That adds up to 36. They're playing 6 teams. I imagine they've all played 6 games. So, T-Man, I wish your name started with a lowercase t because then it would look like a plus sign for all that good math that you just did. So we salute you, sir. All right. It's past 9:30, so we're going to call it right there. Like I say, we have no post-game show this weekend, but we will be back with all the morning pits next week. We'll have a live show next Wednesday night. We'll have a live stream, a live post-game show after the game on Thursday night. That's going to be it's going to be a late night, but it's all right. We're all up for it. I mean, I think everybody's going to be jazzed. Jim, I keep saying that, like, no matter what happens next Thursday night, I don't think it's going to be dull. Even if it's a blowout one way or the other, it's going to be really compelling, and we're going to have a whole lot to talk about. So that live stream at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, we're going to be firing on all cylinders for sure. I'm sure my brain is going to be working top capacity, but even if it's not, the whiskey will get it going. So that's what we'll do. All right, Jim, thanks for your time tonight. Thanks everybody for tuning in on the live stream with the comments and the questions. It's been a lot of fun, as it always is. Don't forget to check out the Morning Pit tomorrow, and like and subscribe. Do all that. Have a great rest of your Wednesday night, and we will catch up with you tomorrow morning for the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.